And so we're finally coming here. The mess that is the movie based on the franchise, specifically about the first game. So I would say this right off the bat. This is not the worst video game adaptation I've ever seen, if I have to be honest. Because the animation is competent for the most part. There is one character design that I generally do not like, but most of the others are fine to me. The music is okay, but not memorable. And they did got almost all of the voice actors for the game for the main from the games for the main role. At least for the English dub. More on that later. So what's the problem? The way they reimagined the story of the first game is just all over the place. TJ Fixman was on board on writing stuff for it, but I don't know exactly what happened. But like halfway through the development, he basically either got fired or he quit himself. And the heavily rewrites were done by the director. I forgot his name, but apparently it's the same guy
Kevin
that
Munro.
okay, who's also responsible for the 2007 TMNT movie, which I did like, but I understand why it's a mess in its own merits.
More
My
infamously,
my
Kevin Munro is the co-producer of Strange Magic and the creative consultant for the My Little Pony movie.
which one?
The 2017 one. It's not really particularly hated, but it's not particularly loved either. And given that this is like Gen 4 MLP we're talking about, that kind of says a lot.
He's also I know him on a personal level because he's also involved with the 2010s adaptation of an Italian comic called Dylan Dog. More on that if we ever get to that point. Let me put it this way: this is not really the guy that should be writing this kind of thing.
And
And
since this was a project that apparently spooked off TJ Fixman, who'd been with the series for so long, I'm sure that's only a good sign.
we will see more about that as we go on. Okay, audience, here's where the mess started even before starting the movie. Because so many companies were handling this, you would think that Sony, because, they have a picture division, an animation division, they will actually handle these themselves. But no, that's too much effort and too much logic. So instead, they outsourced this to a bunch of different animation studios, including partially Comcast, so Universal. So just to cut the shit at the root, start as the movie starting with the music and either just the planet or Gramercy Pictures and Remake Entertainment present writing if you're possibly in the American Blu-ray release. So if you're hopefully in sync with us, let's carve this turkey in 3, 2, 1, click. So right, again, like I said, this is not really to me the worst video game adaptation, and I still like it on a very superficial level. But it's some specific things they did that they tell me, yeah, this was not the original plan, and the end result is too much of a mess. For starters, let's begin with this. The original game, first of all, they gave Sherman Drac Irids, which, compared to some other cases, I think it's fine. Although you can kinda tell that Toys for Bob took inspiration from this to do the Reignited trilogy for Spyro in terms of designs. So, the humor right
That's
off the
not Kevin
get,
Michael Richardson.
no, instead it's Paul Giamatti for some reason because they wanted a name on the box. So we do have a case of minor voice acting whitewashing. Also because this is 2016, a lot of the jokes are about Lamau texting, which I don't particularly mind too much. But this movie commits the scene, that cardinal scene that was at the time, of having to stop the joke or the movie on its track to lampshade the fact that there is a joke. That kind of Joss Whedon type of deal. Also, the bodyguard, which in the original game was just a relatively minor character, here has its role expanded and is voiced by Sylvester Stallone, because why not? So,
Ah,
right off the gate, one thing that I particularly like about this is that the first game had a more simple type of plot that makes you wonder why every planet was for themselves. Why every planet was for themselves, and the Blarg were having such a free carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. This movie and the reimagining video game try to address this and say that this is more of an aggressive type of expansionism that is almost like an intergalactic war. And another key difference, as we're seeing here, Chairman Drek already has the deplanetizer complete, so unfortunately things are dying right from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, am I the only one of us three that actually saw this in the cinema?
I've seen it on my own.
This is actually going to be my first time seeing this movie in full. Basically, my knowledge of this movie is mostly secondary, essentially. Now, I am aware of the overall plot, and I'm aware of what a lot of people don't like, because this movie has garnered something of a reputation.
Hey, look,
now, like
the same robot model as Clank and Zephyr, in order to, establish a bit more. Again, this is one of those things that I can't believe were a remnant of TJ Fixman's script. The basic thing that I will say is that I believe what he wanted to do was reimagine the plot of the first game with the stuff that he introduced in the future saga, particularly about the origins of Ratchet and Clank, to make it more seamless, integrated with the rest of the future games, which on paper I actually like, because, the first game had the potential to be expanded with those and to make it more, coherent. But unfortunately, also, here's the one design that I'm about to not like. What the fuck they did to Dallas?
Okay,
They removed his hair and they made his eyebrows green instead of brown. Did they wanted to distance themselves from the Tucker Carlson, appearance? Also, the president.
I wonder. Oh, cool, the Galactic Rangers. It'll be nice to see Sasha again.
Actually, no. Instead, the Galactic Rangers are just the quirky superhero squad. They don't even have the basic troops. And they're a bunch of people created for this movie that accompany Quark. And yes, this is the last time you'll hear him voiced by Gene Ward.
So, yeah, that's an awkward way to start. So, you're reintroducing the Galactic Rangers, which, okay. One complaint I did have about the series post-3 was that it was iffy with continuity. So, bringing something back like the Galactic Rangers, without them having to be remanded to like a comic and whatnot, that's nice. Problem. These are a completely new team of Galactic Rangers.
And let me tell you, unfortunately, these new people that are accompanying Quark are fairly anonymous. The movie tries very desperately to give them personality, but I so don't give a shit about them.
I mean, problem with this movie is that it's so bland and forgettable.
So let me get this straight. You established that Sasha's father is a thing, even gave him a new revamped design, but you don't have her show up as the leader of the Galactic Rangers, which she was in 3. Like, okay, maybe the idea was to have this lead up to 3 where she does become the leader, but I don't know. 3 kind of suggested she was always the leader, so yeah, again, not a great start.
Hey,
yeah, okay,
here's the Tarpod. This movie particularly loves to reference All for One, believe it or not.
Interesting. This is quite different from how Ratchet was starting off in the original game, but okay. Yeah, let's get the elephant out of the room, out of the way, essentially. What the 2016 project of Ratchet and Clank was meant to be was not simply a reboot, or at least they say nowadays it wasn't supposed to be a reboot. I still think it was, but nowadays it's referred to as a reimagining, essentially. Something that would basically be a retread of the original plot, but something that would set up a continuity that was better ironed out. Since, as we mentioned, the continuity was getting a little messy by the time of Nexus Force, essentially. The problem is, of course, a lot of the changes that they chose to make. Ratchet here is not quite as cynical as he was in the original game. Now, instead, he's more of a quirky up-and-go-getter, essentially, who has
He's the main presenter of Pimp My Ride.
Yeah, for now he wanted to improve the spaceship of his Starpod, but he fucked up.
Improving the product, but when in reality he's throwing a bunch of useless stuff on it and making it look really ugly.
Again, on the one hand, and going off of how the game goes, I can understand they were probably trying to make it seem like the whole him and Clank seeming like the prophesized chosen ones didn't come as out of nowhere, but Yeah,
I can
I'm just
tell
gonna
this
get a
is
bit
a
ahead of.
bit of a remnant of TJ Fixman's script because they wanted to play up more the fact that Ratchet was more into the whole tinkering and gadgeting stuff, even when it wasn't necessary. In this case, pimping up the ship of his star pod.
I will say this though. Okay, let's run with the assumption that TJ Fixman quit. I wonder at what point the story changes frustrated him, or if it was more with the game rather than the movie.
No
Since
idea.
I do recall, I think when it comes to plot complaints, it's definitely more with the game than with the movie.
No, actually,
Even though
I
the
argue the
movie,
game is a significant improvement over the plot of the movie, believe it or not.
all right, because of that detail of who's actually telling the
Not
story.
just that,
Fair
it's
enough.
because it's an actual remake of the first game. It's just they needs to adhere a bit more to the plot of the movie.
And he
Oh,
died.
It's fine.
I went into this not having the best of hopes, but at least hoping it would be at least
Comprehensive.
somewhat entertaining. Because
mm,
remember, at this point, I barely had any experience with the series. I mean, I think I did play the 2016 game, but not much else, or if anything else, really. But I went out of it just being like, that was just really kind of dull.
Also, just to mention,
which
they do capture the fact that Chairman Drake is evil as shit, but he's a bit more bumbling and less imposing compared to his game counterpart, and there is a reason for that. He also has a
oh, and
robot.
that reason.
He also has a robotic assistant that I don't understand why. I know that I forgot who he's voiced by in this movie, but in the game adaptation, he's voiced by Sam Riegel instead.
Nice.
Right. Okay, so in terms of box office, it cost $20 million to make and only made 12. Didn't help
Damn.
that they released it a week after the remake of the Disney's remake of the Jungle Book, and a week before Captain America: Civil War,
Yeah, this movie
which
was
is
sent to
Ooh.
also
die.
ironic because they also moved it before to avoid it clashing with The Force Awakens. It ended up costing Rainmaker $7.8 million, and it pretty much sent the Sly Cooper movie to an early grave.
Yeah, I was going to talk
And
about that later because it was going to be the start of a big project for Sony and adapting its IPs. Also, just to mention, yes, Ratchet in this version as a mentor, voiced by fucking John Goodman. Why? Okay, here's the thing. He barely has anything to do in the story other than to be a bit grumpy and say, Ratchet, you're too much energetic as a kid, but I should let you go to your destiny and stuff. My personal belief, tinfoil hat moment, is that originally this character was supposed to be Ratchet's father, Caden. Another Lombax
hmm.
that will actually have to tell him, oh, you're destined for great things, but it's better if you keep it low while staying here, and then eventually, we'll let him go. But at some point, we just change it to that generic guy with a different appearance.
I do find it a bit weird though, since the original series had established that Caden was pretty much long gone, essentially. Hence, whole Ratchet's oh, I'm the only one until he realizes that Angela, mind you, this is by the continuity of the future series, when he first met Angela and realized he wasn't the only one, and then apparently by the time of Crack in Time, he is virtually the only one.
To be
There he
fair, they
is.
never specifically stated when Caden died. The only thing that's mentioned is that. Ouch. But the only thing they mentioned is that Tachyon did mention that Caden stayed behind along with his son. and that Tachyon had killed Ratchet's mother. But we don't really know when Caden died. To be fair, yes, Ratchet never talks about him, so you know. Especially Quark's accomplishments are things that I kind of wonder. Sure you did. Neftin did what?
Yeah, Neftin Prog's already a thing here.
Even though
What about his sister?
even though the Prog twins' motivations in Into the Nexus were at least a bit sympathetic instead of being just two-bit crooks. Also this.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing also. Ratchet is kind of a record.
So this is a weird mix. Ratchet, I guess, just accidentally does
Uh,
criminal stuff.
Are they
Honestly,
implying cracking time happened or something?
honestly, I'd rather those citations they mentioned. I'd rather watch a movie all about those.
Like, okay, I get it, it's more of an Easter egg than anything, but are they implying that that Ratchet altered space and time to go back to his beginning or something?
That would certainly be an interesting way to explain why this is a thing, but yeah, I'll admit, I kind of do feel like this is a bit of a similar problem to the Mario Brothers movie of 2023. Let's throw in all these references, even if they don't make sense when you think about it.
Dr. Nefarious, as you're about to see, is fully organic now and works for Chairman Drek. I'll give you 3 guesses to where this is going, and the first 2 don't count.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
Technically go somewhere, but we're still at the beginning of the movie. This serves to actually explain how Chairman Drek, created his army of warbots, which are definitely more intimidating in this version. Now, again, this is unfortunately removing a bit of agency from the Blargs and say that they were not capable of doing this kind of stuff, while in the original game, they were, technically.
This is definitely one of the main complaints I was made aware of with the 2016 project. The inclusion of Nefarious, because, of course, it's Nefarious, the most popular villain, so let's say he was there all along as early as the first game. It's not inherently a bad idea, but I don't know, it feels unnecessary. It would be like if we made a remake of...
Say the line, Nefarious. There you go. Moving on.
Lovely. Did they also get his voice actor
Yes,
back?
Armin Shimmerman. But here's the thing. Clank in this version is not created because his motherboard, decided to have a conscience and created a version, a mobile that could warn the rest of the galaxy. In here, a bolt of lightning strikes the machine, which accidentally creates the Clank model and makes him good. Now, other tinfoil hat moment. Originally, TJ Vixman probably wrote this to be more elaborate, and that this would have been the quote-unquote divine intervention from Orvus in order to create his son in the right moment of time. Again, when you think about it, the pieces do fall into place. The idea of recontextualizing the beginning of the franchise with the stuff added in the future saga. But somewhere along the line, someone thought, nah, that's too much obvious. Let's just remake it in a more generic kind of way.
That I can definitely see being the case, since the lightning bolt does feel like a divine intervention thing that would have to deal with something as mystical as Orvus.
Especially because it's very weird that the factory handled by Dr. Nefarious and everything, just for one accident, will create a bot that is good in morality.
Failure again! To him!
I love how in that first game, it was clearly just one guy doing all the voices.
Yes, but God, Lord, did he ever do such a great job. Brian was his name.
Brandon O'Brien.
Yeah, Brendan O'Brien.
So yeah, again, Clank managed to love... Again, I like the fact that they also give the henchman more stuff to do, because if you recall in the first game, he literally was just there, and on the wooden planet, he just disappears.
And while I don't feel like it should be an automatic credit, sadly it's such a rarity in this day that I do have to give him credit for at least getting back James Arnold Taylor and David Kay as their respective
And
roles
Jim
in addition
Ward.
to Jim Ward.
Yeah. But it's a good segue,
Yeah.
because again, this scene serves no purpose other than, Ratchet's mentor to say, oh, don't worry, kid, you have the stuff in you.
Is that the John Goodman character?
Yes, you have
Yeah.
seen this scene 1,000 fucking times. But let's talk about the foreign dubs, because that's the thing that instead pissed off a lot of people. See, at least in the English language, they bother to actually have the core characters, at the very least, having their voice actor reprise. Outside of Chairman Drek, some of the other minor returning characters like Dallas and Juanita do not have the voice actors that they had originally. But they did got at least good sound-alikes. Not so much for the non-speaking European countries, non-English-speaking European countries, because instead, for countries like France, or mine for that matter, they instead got a bunch of people like either small celebrities, like comedians in my case, and for some reason, YouTubers to voice some of the characters, including apparently in the French dub, a YouTuber to voice Ratchet himself. Understandably, people did not like that. Not only the fans did not like that, but in my country, some of the voice actors did not like that because they did not knew this was going to happen. Particularly Clank's and Quark's VAs, which did instead voice the character for the game adaptation of this, did not know that their roles had been recast for the movie itself. So when they got to know that, they actively said that they were going to boycott appearing in the franchise for any future appearance. Thankfully, I have to be thankful that this is one case where Rift Apart took so long to be made, because that was enough time to bury the hatchet for these people, because they returned for their role, thank God.
So yeah, the two meet essentially.
Which happens during the night instead of the day, which I'm fine with, but gives a bit more spice to the locale and everything. Again, this movie's obsession to overly extend gags or lampshade them. Also, Star Wars wipes.
Wipe. Oh, also, between this in 2016 and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in 2017, was Sylvester Stallone on like some weird challenge to be in as much space operas as he could be?
I don't know.
So, I can't confirm if this movie was the reason for it, but this was the final film that Gramercy Pictures as a label distributed.
Yeah,
I don't know if this movie's failure was because...
Yeah, so like we've said, the massive loss in terms of money. Also, Quark's render from All for One on one of the posters in the background.
Again, references like these I'm fine with, but again, my biggest problem so far is the fact that this movie can't seem to decide... Well, okay, it knows that it wants to be a new continuity, but it's constantly throwing in stuff that makes it feel like it's part of the old continuity.
Big thing that I don't like, they renamed Care One and Metropolis into Aliro City.
Honestly, what bothers me more are these weird gags that they have below the location name.
Yeah.
I guess it's
they shop open daily.
They tend to work better in comic books, usually.
So, given that Quark and the Galactic Rangers seem to actually be on the up and up in this version, does this mean that they also make Quark actually truly a good guy and not secretly a bad guy like in the game?
Oh, you'll see, don't worry.
Joy because oh no, wait, no.
What I can say, however, is that in terms of pacing, we are really skipping down to the essential of the first game because we're skipping stuff like Skid Mad Max on Aridia and instead going straight, and also, for example, the entire first trip to Novalis, and instead we're going directly to the equivalent of Metropolis.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank are pretty much already on the job, it seems.
Also, by the way, as foreshadowed when we did the early games, don't expect Ratchet and Clank. Here's the Nutzel and then Johnson and Sly.
Hey, that renders from the Sly movie. That'll be great coming up. Oops.
But no, don't expect Ratchet and Clank to have a lot of chemistry between each other because the movie is rushing a lot and because they're gonna have the character being firmly separated. Clank is gonna operate a bit more on radio control. For most of the movie, these two will not interact that much.
Did no one get the memo that tends to not track well with the series?
Apparently the director.
Jesus.
Oh, wait, about like when he rewrote it, probably.
Yeah.
Also, somebody certainly saw Star Wars and liked it.
Yeah, this is straight up from, reminds me of the climax of episode 2.
Yeah.
Again, I will say this, at the very least, the voice actors are not phoning in their lines, particularly people like Jim Ward.
Yeah, no.
I don't remember who the new companions of the Galactic Rangers are voiced by. I think one of them is voiced by Rosario Dawson, I think, but I'm not
One's
entirely
Bella
Yes.
Thorne, I know that much.
Okay, Rosario Dawson was big since at this time she was the recurring factor between the MCU Street series, basically, between Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and all that jazz. Let's see, Bella Thorne was in Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Trip, around the time, Jesus Christ. Although she was in the Babysitter film series, which, I've heard good things about. And she was in...
Ouch.
Oh, the humanity! Okay, I will say this. One thing I do find weird is, so Ratchet wanted to join the Galactic Rangers despite knowingly having a criminal record, and I'm like, why? Like, wouldn't he know that that's an obvious disqualification?
Well, he himself thinks that it's not that big of a deal when it clearly is.
My problem is that
the
this
movie
is
trying to balance things out by having the idea of trying to make Ratchet at the same time someone with great adventures but a bad record like Jim in Treasure Planet, but at the same time having that kind of wisdom, sorry, not wisdom, that kind of, wide-eyed aspirations that, say, Luke Skywalker would have in A New Hope, and the two things just don't mesh.
They really do not. Like, Jim Hawkins was a boy who pretty much had given up on his future until he was given a chance. Luke was someone who was actively seeking to do the right thing, and he was, not someone who constantly did criminal activities.
Okay, for the record, he was still a kid that did some fucking around with Biggs and Wedge, like shooting the space rats. I think that he mentions that,
Wand rats, yeah.
But he wasn't a criminal at the end of the day.
I can view this movie one of either two ways. Either this is some abridged TV movie that Ratchet and Clank are watching about the events, and or Ratchet and Clank made this themselves, but they deliberately left out some of the bits that made Ratchet look rather shitty.
Remember that considering for when the game will start, Dweeb, so don't worry.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't like overly angsty and rude Ratchet either.
But this is not a good alternative. I get it.
No, not particularly. I mean, if I had to take one or the other, I'd prefer this one, but it's still not terribly engaging.
See,
and honestly,
not terribly engaging versus not that engaging at all.
Also, in the previous
Also,
shot,
there's
we
the
got to see.
female robot.
Yeah, I was about to say, we got to see Juanita, and her design was fine. They gave her 2 irises to her eye, but she was fine. So why did they fucked up Dallas?
Like, I'm curious, were they
tried to turn
worried
us into
about
Clone
getting?
Wars light.
I'm curious, were they like afraid of being sued by Tucker Carlson or something?
I mean, this was 2016, so I do wonder.
But yeah, no, I think part of the issue is that, you know, if they were doing that as a response to, you know, Ratchet being a bit iffy as a character in the first game, I'd maybe get that. But honestly, from all the changes that have been made, part of me thinks they just made it because, well, I don't think the guy in charge really studied the original game. Like, and look, I've said my piece about how I feel TJ Fixman could be a bit iffy with continuity to the original trilogy, but I can at least believe that he did his research on it at some point. And uh-oh, looks like there's a new hero in town, Quark.
I also love that most of the aliens are just recycled models for the fungoids and the tarpods. Alright, I hear the cast. The other Rangers are voiced respectively by Bella Thorne, like we've said, for the character of Cora Verolux. See, even her voice is fine. Brax, the big guy with the glasses, is voiced by Vincent Tong. I don't know who that is.
Nice.
I don't think I know who that is.
He's played Knuckles in some Canadian Sonic stuff. I forget if he's...
so I guess it's the Netflix series.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and
he was also in Ninjago, yeah.
And then there's the character that I mentioned, played by Rosario Dawson.
It's a shame I can't really tell much of who's who aside from guys, big guy, and those are the girls. Again, hopefully maybe the movie will give them more characters. So there you go.
Quark is coerced into accepting Ratchet and Clank into the Galactic Rangers.
To save face.
What a shock!
Okay, I don't remember too much of this movie, but is he just gonna have him be the janitor or something?
Surprisingly, no. You would think that he will do it, but again, they take Quark's characterization to a different degree in this. We'll see.
No, I like Paul Giamatti, but
Kevin Michael Richardson was just fine, and he has worked in movies as recently as, you know, the Mario movie as comic. Just get him.
Like, you know, okay, look. For once, I'm definitely not going to say that they were being racist when they replaced a black voice actor with a white voice actor.
They just wanted an actor, you know's name on the poster, Jova. That's it.
That said, here's my thing. Kevin Michael Richardson is big. He's been in big movies.
Well, Jova,
he's starred in big movies, too. But that's the thing, like, you think Kevin Michael Richardson would be box office gold. He's been box office gold, but nope, let's replace him with Paul Giamatti, who I'm sorry.
Michael Richardson, he wasn't, no, that was a few years later. He wasn't Dr. Hibbert yet in The Simpsons.
So, yeah, the idea of having Quark becoming basically corrupted and working with Blarg, instead in here is given from Nefarious, although German Drek needs to get the hint.
So, yeah, basically, German Drek's just window dressing. Nefarious is the main villain of this movie.
Not to mention, this also says that basically Quark is an idiot, but up until now, he wasn't working for the bad guy, like instead he was in the original game. Right from the get-go he was.
Okay, this isn't the worst idea overall, you know, the idea, since we have seen at least as early as Ratchet and Clank 2 that Quark can be very, very envious and whatnot. Also, I find it funny that the base here is what appears to be more so the galaxy that, you know, Ratchet and Clank would more so hang out in the future series as opposed to the original series. Again, maybe it's to try and, you know, connect them better, but
also,
still.
She's playing a version of a clone of Quake. Cute. Or I think it was... Or I think it was like the second or third game in first-person mode, but still. Showcase how Insomniac has always been a fan of classic id Software shooters. So yeah, because of, instead of actually fighting as a team, we're gonna have Clank study under this Galactic Ranger
Polaris.
as mission control. Okay.
Yeah. Also, yeah, so Alaris is the one played by Rosario Dawson, and how funny that she's tech support since Rosario Dawson was kind of basically medical support in the MCU.
So, one of the positives also, they actually get, writing referencing stuff from the game, particularly in terms of the arsenal, and we're about to get a demonstration. First, Ratchet gets a new proto-suit, which I don't particularly care about. It's fine, and it's a showcase of different costumes that you could get in the other games, but it basically carries this for most of the movie and the game.
Use the Force.
Yeah.
There you go. Here's the combustor.
I'll give it credit. That's actually a neat way to translate, game mechanics of the weapons just coming in there.
They even got this slideshow similar to a Cracking Time.
So, that's the weird thing. Half the time it feels like they did do their research, but the other half it feels like they blatantly didn't.
This is why I'm just convinced TJ Fixman wrote the basics and then the other guy just came in and scribbled
apparently
places.
that is what happened. Apparently that's what happened. He wrote the script first time round, but it got rewritten so heavily you could only see fingerprints of Fixman, and then the experience of working on this movie he didn't appreciate very much, and so he left.
Yeah.
I'll say this about Fixman. I see him to Ratchet and Clank how I see Yamazaki to Ace Attorney. He was the guy who stepped up when they needed a new writer, essentially. Again, some may argue his is not as great as the original stuff, but I do think he was truly the best man for the job, and he showed that he gave the series love and care. So, again, I really find his departure to be quite the red flag for, the 2016 project as a whole.
And honestly, I don't... Oh, God. Yeah, Dr. Nefarious also used to be a Galactic Ranger, and she was pretty infatuated with him. Uh-huh.
Apparently, since this movie was primarily made in Canada, they had a few Canadian voice actors do some background roles.
Fair enough. And also, just to mention, I don't want to get into details because that's a kind of worms that I don't think we needs to be open that much, even when we get to it. But the TJ Fixman departure will in hindsight, influence the way Rift Apart eventually will be written. I don't even think Insomniac did ask him to come back, but even if they did, the price for it was a case where he just had enough. So yeah, instead of actually, giving Clank his helicopter mode from Al, let's just give Ratchet a jetpack.
Which I guess, to be fair, he did get in later games, but yeah, we're not really emphasizing the duo of Ratchet and Clank now, are we?
Wah, wah.
Oh, wait, let me guess. Ratchet's influenced by Quark's attitude, and he becomes too much of a jock like Quark and forgets the importance of working together with Clank until the climax.
Jova, that would imply that
I'm a robot. I do not eat.
Jova, that would imply that this movie has an idea on what, potentially giving bad qualities to Ratchet as a character.
Wait, so you mean this isn't even something he has to learn a lesson from? It's just...
There is
filler,
a moment of lowest point of a character later on, again with the Star Wars vibes, but you'll be able to see. And yeah, similar to Deadlock, Ratchet is instantly famous and people love him.
Okay, I like this idea of an origin point of him as part of the Galactic Rangers, but I feel like this kind of clashes with the plot of the first game, which, hey, haven't we kind of moved away from that plot now? And we only have like an hour and a half of movie. Also, is it just me or does Korra look a lot like Talon?
I don't know.
According to Wikipedia, apparently the character Korra Virlex, the one played by Belleform, appears to be Talon's counterpart, supposedly.
I mean, I do not know this, but I do wonder if in TJ Fixman original draft it was supposed to be Talwyn.
I guess I could see it. While this is the original universe that they hung out in before the future series,
Jesus.
the idea could be that, Talon was with the Galactic Rangers, which I guess would explain why they didn't include Sasha, since
It's
I
so
guess they
weird though,
really want to
because we're in
move.
Solana and Tolwyn firmly stayed in Polaris, so
Yeah, I do wonder if they were trying to just mesh everything together, since, like you even mentioned, we're seeing robots that were more from Solana and all that. With
we'll
the Kronk and Zephyr ones here.
we will see the plumber again before the end of the movie, so don't worry about that. And yeah, here's the return of Quark's doodles plans.
True art in the making.
Eat waffles, apparently.
Hilarious.
Get it? The ones who are more action oriented are the jocks, but the scientific one with Clank is the one who actually thinks. Which, okay, kind of makes me think, if this is how the dynamic was always, shouldn't the Galactic Rangers have been toast by now?
Well, up until now, we did not have a threat as big as Chairman Drake, apparently. I seem to find a bit of discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because we're assaulting immediately the Drax Industries, we're skipping all out of the stuff that was in between in the game.
So what this seems to be is kind of a meshing of 1 and 3's plots, which, some Galactic Ranger shenanigans and whatnot, also nice Fortnite backbling there, Ratchet, and the plot of the first game, even though we kind of seem to have left the plot of the first game behind for a good chunk, honestly.
At least Quark is still
Yeah, I think that I was about to mention, compared to what was happening in the game up until this point after All for One, Quark is definitely more in line with his early games characterization. Even if it's not immediately corrupted, he's still an asshole that wants
yeah,
the
he's still got
glory.
he's still got a massive inflated ego.
He's a Brannigan, that's basically who he is.
Yeah, I will say this. I don't mind this different take on Quark, in that it at least seems true to the first game while trying something new, seeing how it would have been if he did start off as a legit hero, albeit one who's still
A
very much a
whimsy.
blowhard and corruptible. But yeah, no, I do notice that this movie seems to be going for a much more whimsical tone than the first game. Again, I do get it,
Clockwork
that's
wipe,
kind of
okay.
cute.
The
Yeah, I
hell?
really do get the feeling somebody really wanted to do their Star Wars take with this.
Oh,
Hmm.
don't worry. In the game, you actually have to find some resistance, but you'll see.
Seriously, that second
What?
theory I had that Ratchet and Clank produced this movie themselves when just erased all the non-flattery Ratchet bits.
So now, Chairman Drake is about to take a page from, of all things, the comic, believe it or not. Uh,
Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh.
yeah, thank you.
They might as well have renamed this character that.
You may notice
Oh.
you may notice the small icon, so we're about to have a bit of a surprise. Yeah, the Zircons.
Oh.
Although, if I recall correctly, they did not get Mark Groh to voice them in this movie. which is
Oh yeah,
which
yeah, it's
that I think it's sacrilegious. I'm sorry. Like it's such a small role.
yeah.
Just get the guy. Just get the fucking guy. What is wrong with the movie industry being so afraid of having role reprisals?
Instead, they got
It's Brian
Canadian.
Drummond.
Which
Yep, Canadian Vegeta and Canadian
which I
Eggman.
like Brian Drummond for a couple of the roles we did in other video games like Gorgut's Headhunter in the Warhammer 40k Dawn of War games. It's just not the same as Mark Rowe.
It does also feel weird since Mr. Zircon was kind of a bit player. It's
Like,
oh,
okay,
okay, like
you don't want to rehire the voice actor, just recycle the lines from the game. It costs you less to do it than to hire a new guy.
okay, as cynical as it sounds, I get why you replaced Kevin Michael Richardson with Paul Giamatti. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still dumb, but at least Paul Giamatti was a name that would be up top there. But replacing the guy who voiced Mr. Zircon, like, I doubt you really had to replace him with a big name.
I mean, all this movie got was a short film that came out quite a few years after
Called
this.
Life of
Oh,
Pi.
really?
It's a small sketch about Ratchet and Clank having to eat a pie. Literally. That's it.
Huh.
So yeah, here's the thing that we didn't get to see in the game. How did Quark decide to become corrupt?
Okay, okay, that joke was funny.
So yeah, Chairman Drake, again taking a bit more agency, although it again clearly suggests that it fails, pushes a bit the right button to get Quark on his side.
Kudos also, I'll give him credit. They don't reveal that Nefarious is working with him, since as stupid as Quark is, even he would know better if he knew Nefarious was
Put a
involved.
pin on that.
Yeah, interestingly enough, this does seem to take cues from the comic where Quark's agent is the one who pushed him to do that presidential
Conan the
campaign.
Barbarian. Also, the other
Oh
two posters
god.
were also references.
Yeah, I can't remember what they were referencing in
They're
particular,
a
but I
bit. They
do
were. Oh, there you
recognize.
go. The one on the right, I think it's Rambo. The one on the left, I forgot. Another movie, John Travolta, I think. Yeah, they're definitely also trying to play up a bit more the fact that Quark was more of a victim of becoming corrupted rather than to deliberately doing it. You'll be seeing later.
I'm okay, of the changes, I'm kind of okay with that. If only because it does still at least remember that Quark himself is a jerk
So,
and
yeah,
whatnot.
instead of actually saying it outright, his plan, Jaren Drake, here the characters find out themselves the fact that he wants to build a new planet for the Blargs. We, the audience, knew because he said it at the beginning, but the characters did have to catch up to that.
Also,
Unfortunately.
man, Lord Zed really fell on some hard times.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
I thought that was Clank for a second, holding him upside down.
That would be hilarious. Funny you
Okay,
mentioned that because
wrong.
in
This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
okay. It's funny you mentioned that, Bold Waves, because in the game adaptation of this, Clank has a bit of a slight personal beef with the robotic assistant. Well, sorry to hear that, buddy.
Well, why don't you sing like a canary
Oh
right
no,
now?
he wants Novalis, a planet which we haven't visited a single time in this movie, so we have no personal connection to that.
Like, it would have made more of an impact if he said he wants Veldin, which, hey, reminder, that was what really kickstarted Ratchet into action.
That was the
Wow,
climax of the first movie, the first game. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, so far, uh, well, at least Kevin Monroe. If we're comparing this to the TMNT 2007 movie, Kevin Monroe was at least consistent in one aspect. This movie's just as really just kind of dull as that one.
I did still like the 2007 TMNT movie, but I had to ask Deji specifically the things that were wrong with it in continuity and so on.
Although a bit ironic though, Kevin Monroe directed that and this. James Arnold Taylor and Mikey Kelly were also in TMNT.
Yes, James Arnold Taylor voices
nice.
Leonardo, I think.
And Mikey Kelly voiced Michelangelo. So it's
Yeah.
like the two. It's like Ratchet's two personalities got split into two people.
Again, as a general rule of thumb that I do mention, any TMNT reboot movie that doesn't want to start immediately with the Shredder is doing something right in my book. Long enough. Again, I will say that even Armin Shimmerman is not really phoning in his lines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I can tell he loves doing the role. Well, in terms of theatrically released movies that James Arnold Taylor's been in, it's a better one.
Here's
well,
the
okay,
Sony PlayStation startup.
Yeah, okay, that was cute.
I was going to say, in terms of those, I wouldn't say this is far and away not his best one, but compared to other stuff like the Clone Wars movie and Food Fight.
Oh, and by the way, we're getting
Yeah.
into Batman v Superman level of stupidity because we're about to actually trying to get to the planetizer, but just in case they manage just in this short amount of time to evacuate the entirety of Novalis. So just in case there would be no casualties.
Which,
Everyone was evacuated.
I'm gonna be honest, that feels a bit weak since, okay, if you're trying to avert loss of life, he's already destroyed several other planets, which implies he's killed a mass amount of people.
Boop.
And not having those people on that planet kind of takes away from the stakes, which, were a thing in the original game. I don't even get why they're doing it like that. I guess maybe it's to help Quark not look like a monster for helping him out with this.
Okay, I kinda like that. Again, 2016, so they had to do those.
Like, yeah, I'll give it credit. There are some jokes that work, just not enough that makes this movie work
No.
as a whole for me.
I also will say that the constant lamp shading and holding out on a joke, those are easily the worst parts to me.
I do wonder if part of that is them trying to capture what they thought was the spirit of the original trilogy, which was
the spirit of the original
very
was
satirical.
The spirit of the original also was very being crass. The first cutscene in which we see Chairman Drac is to tell anyone who opposes him to get in line and kiss his ass.
Well, this is why I said what they think the original was going for, because the original trilogy was very satirical and, like you said, more crass, but again, definitely had an emphasis on satire, including the capitalism and whatnot. I think this is what they thought would be just as clever, only not really. Yeah, I do think 2016 was around that time where a lot of projects suddenly felt like they had to constantly call out anything silly in the plot with some witty banter or remarks and whatnot and go, oh, isn't this really stupid when you think about it? I mean, why are we even doing it like this?
So yeah, their weapons aren't working. What do they do and who did it?
Whomst.
Right, yes, Rocky, I mean, sir.
I forgot, what is
I guess I'll give him
what is Stallone's character in Expendables called?
Barney.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, Victor seems to be really obsessed with getting Clank for some reason.
Clank killed my mother. I can't do a good Stallone impression.
Clank killed my mother.
Yeah, like that. Run! Um,
Oh,
Yeah.
that poor, poor man. Also, I guess Ratchet's going to take a
That's
while.
another joke that's a little bit funny. I don't want to touch his feet. Get Quentin Bot to do it.
Ratchet, no. Never tell me the odds.
Never tell me the odds.
Never tell me the odds.
Surprised you didn't just say that.
Big heroes do big things. Yeah, that didn't catch on.
So now instead it's time to check to have a bit of a, not parody, but homage to Alien. Really Scott's Alien, believe it or not.
Also, there are the boxes and crates usually smashed to get bolts.
Yeah. Hello.
Is he using his sat nav?
Sure. Unfortunately, Ratchet, like a moron, managed to get ambushed by Chairman Drake on foot. Now that's actually a rookie mistake. Game Ratchet would never been able to, be this kind of moronic. So yeah, this is the moment where poor Ratchet has to learn about the truth. And instead of actually, filling him with rage, you will fill him with sadness and everything. More on that later. For now, we had to see how how Clank defeats Victor.
Hate my reflection.
No, he's remember he's on a previous generation and he's not rust proof. All right, pop quiz. Do you remember what the Founders Mac does? For one.
I think well, obviously lightning, but it creates a storm cloud, don't it?
Yep, like that. Which is just enough to, there you go, to rust him.
I'm actually surprised that they didn't have it be that his lightning blades caused him to get electrocuted by the
they
rain,
made it
too.
a point to the fact that he was vulnerable to rust, so, that was the payoff to that. Really,
I guess
Clank?
that's Victor taken care of.
Really, Clank? No one-liners? Come on, Clank did have one-liners in the games. He even had the Scooby-Doo laughter to match that.
Yeah, like, even though Clank was the more serious of the two, that didn't mean he was above cracking jokes and one-liners.
Hold on, here's where the hard truth happens, because,
All right.
oh no, Ratchet gets to see that Quark has betrayed them, oh no. So
How
yeah,
could
Pay no
you?
attention to the man behind the door.
just fucking, there you go. So yeah, remember how in the original game Ratchet became borderline Jack and says, I'm gonna kill Quark? In here,
Yeah.
yes, he's definitely disappointed in an, irritated way, but he's having more of a soft kind of reaction. Now, as someone who firmly believes sadness should be a better emotion to have as a response than anger, this is still disappointing on a narrative level.
Also, I love how Quark would have gotten away with it if he hadn't just left the door open.
Yeah. And yeah, just like that, Novalis gets deplanetized, unlike in the first game, which would be really a shock, again, if we ever got to Novalis and got to know about it.
Honestly, I knew more about Alderaan before it got blown up, and Alderaan was mentioned like
3 times.
15 times before then.
The concept of a planet cracker is as old as science fiction, so this is nothing too new.
I can't even joke and say it was a life because the planet was conveniently evacuated, so... Oh no!
Yeah,
But Quark regrets this now.
That's also the other thing, you want to have the gravity of Novalis being destroyed, but outside of the actual planet, there was no casualty. And yeah, here's the thing, this is where Quark sees when Nefarious is working with Drac, and that's where he decides to cut the line.
So, again, if Nefarious hadn't walked by, I guess Quark's morality would have still had him work with Drek. What?
Here's one thing that I like, the way that Drac uses nanobots in order to pick the pieces of a planet where he needs to reconvert it to his perfect homeworld, new homeworld. Again, it's a nice touch that expands upon what the original was going to do. I needed more of these and less stupid shit.
I will also give him some credit. Maybe the idea is that Navalis blowing up is to give us an idea of what is truly at stake if they do this on a populated planet. All the same, I do feel like the whole destruction
Also,
of Navalis was
Jova,
sloppy.
the opening of the movie started with another planet getting cracked.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. So,
yeah,
in that
instead
case,
of actually killing Ratchet, Greg allowed him to actually just return to Veldin and tuck tail.
How about how that would work? Now you see me destroy the planet. You will go back to your planet and sulk.
and now Ratchet's getting basically the big blame. Wow.
Oh yeah, you're still in the movie.
Yeah, that's what we do. Just saw a whole planet get blown up. Comedy.
Not for nothing, Ratchet, but get your head in the game. Okay, you got betrayed. Shouldn't you be going back and trying to mobilize the Galactic Rangers, or hell, contacting Clank, who actually would listen to you? Why are you sulking?
I can only imagine what was going through the mind of John Goodman as he was voicing this character, just waiting until he was finished to get the paycheck.
Okay, like I said, John Goodman's had his trek as the mentors. Heck, he's played Santa Claus several times and whatnot, so I get putting him in this kind of role here. I will admit, though, it really does feel like John Goodman's just here to be John Goodman. I don't necessarily mean that in a terrible way.
It also highlights the fact that Ratchet did not need this kind of character. In the original, even his downer moments, even without Clank, he had to still think for himself and the life that he had on Veldin. He did not needed like a surrogate father figure. Like I said, this is why I'm that convinced Caden was supposed to fill this role, because that would have made way more sense for scenes like these.
And again, I know I've critiqued before when Ratchet seems to have given up in the comics and video games, but in the video games, that was pretty much a blink and you'll miss a moment, for the sake of it being a game. And at least in the comic, that made sense, since that was coming off of Kraken time where, as far as he knew, his last link to his species was dead and buried, essentially, and he and Clank had lost a
yeah.
lot.
Again, this movie gets comedy right sometimes.
He just killed all of them.
All right, we have about a half an hour left, so hopefully you
Really?
put that
felt
pace
like
into good use.
half an hour? I thought like this was going on for 2.
How long is
That's
this
the
gonna go on?
You know, that's the thing. Like, in some cases, this movie feels like it's moving all over the place. In other bits, the pacing does feel kind of glacial. I'll just say this: overall, I don't think they used the pacing well.
Like,
on
we
this
really-
movie.
Sonic Unleashed, what are you doing here?
We really couldn't. Yeah, I remember. It's the plot preceding the original game, Patchwork Planet, where the Blargs can live again. But like, you couldn't really get a montage of Ratchet and Clank going through the different planets from the first game in order to fix their problems. I don't know.
So yeah, Clank has to go and get Ratchet out of his funk.
Even though, again, the two barely interacted in the movie up until this point.
Sorry, what's Ratchet going on like this is where I belong? Dude, you are the only person who knows that Quark betrayed the Galactic Rangers. Why didn't you tell them? It's not even like he tries to tell them and they don't believe him.
Drama, did
No,
you forget
he
that
just-
the Order 1886 was released around the same time? This movie?
No, oh god.
The
damn
game
it,
where
several plot
Galahad
problems.
refuses to talk for no particular reason.
This really is just here to have that blue screen of death heroic moment, basically, where
It's also a bad
Ratchet's in
message.
the fun.
It's also a bad message for, in this case, kids. You know, the intended target audience. Like, oh, if you know the truth, don't say anything because no one likes a snitch.
Oh, I guess now's the time where Veldon's the one in.
No,
Oh, never mind.
Veldin never gets in danger in this movie. Yeah, you would think it would be the climax and is Ratchet's final motivation, but no.
Like, why not? Veldon is a place we actually care about.
It's about family.
So now's the part where he tells them that Quark's working for Drek, right?
I think so. Again, it's still been a bit since I saw this movie. Hilarious.
Get it? She was nerdy.
That's not a very old type of joke at all. Oh wow. That's a
70s hairdo.
yeah. No,
They have
secrets
learned
on
nothing. Wait. Oh, yes, he learned that lesson from somewhere.
So yeah, almost, 8 years before Sonic 3 the movie, we're gonna have the same type of idea. You know, having the planetizer, in this case, a laser beam, be moved, of course.
So that's why somebody once made that gag video combining clips from Sonic 3 in this movie.
You'll see. So yeah, this is the moment where Quark confronts Drek about the presence of Nefarious, and believe it or not, the turning point of the movie.
Okay.
The greater good.
The fact that Quark actually does recognize Nefarious as a threat, and
Remember,
you know,
in this particular continuity, Nefarious apparently was part of the Galactic Rangers, but then defected for an evil plan. It was apprehended, but then got away.
Quark, you literally saw Nefarious walk by the door.
Yeah, what Nefarious said.
Eh. Quark. Okay, to be fair, we have seen as early as Ratchet and Clank 3 that Quark is capable of remorse.
So yeah, let's see why Nefarious
Oh.
wanted to talk to Drake in private. This Drake is basically out of the movie shipinated.
Wow.
Well,
You
was
know,
Paul Giamatti costing too much?
I was partially joking about Nefarious being the true villain of this picture, but yeah, no, this is basically Nefarious's
Now
evil plot.
we will see Chairman Drake one more time before the movie ends. You'll be able to see in context. But yes, for the climax of the movie, Drake is taken outside, and the rest of the Blard forces in the planetizer are led by Nefarious. It's
You
literally
know,
a hijack by Ganon situation.
oh, also Zed's on our side. Neat.
Just roll with it. I don't care.
Can I just say I'm not often really a fan of when the main villain is built up, but then oh surprise, someone else takes him out before we even get to have a cathartic fight against
I
him.
don't want to
How
make
you coping with? How do you cope with those Disney twist villains, then, Joe?
I don't want to make one specific example that I know I'm the only one liking it, but I do believe there is a methodology in doing that.
No, oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's always done bad. It can be done well. Shoot, I am actually a big fan of Twilight Princess, which practically is the codifier for Hijacked by Ganon, essentially. I'm just saying that this is one of those cases where I kind of feel like it sucks, since in the original, we actually got to fight
Yeah.
Drek and give him the old 1-2 for everything he had done. Here, I mean, sure, he'll probably get his comeuppance, but it doesn't feel as satisfying, especially knowing that essentially what they're doing is saying, hey, again, Nefarious was the true villain all along.
Although I do kind of
Which,
like the idea that the Shipinator was something that Nefarious invented. That would be in character for him to do.
since this was before he was turned metallic, yeah.
Bye.
Bye! Let me guess, he's gonna be trapped on that planet and get blown up with it like in the original game.
We'll see. Your mom. There you go. Dweebs, did you wrote this part?
So what is Nefarious' main motivation for doing all this, I wonder?
He's evil.
Yes, that's literally it.
Like,
it's literally a case of, it's literally the Overlord list job, run on checks on all the mad scientists that you're hiring.
yeah, like, I mean, he doesn't seem to want to do it for money. Like, in the original games, his main motivation was the fact that, well, Quark drove him to
Yeah,
evil,
revenge.
essentially.
You may have noticed, here's the all, guys. You might have noticed that they try to make Nefarious' origin a bit more classy, because yes, that's exactly what they're going. He's the main villain, he's gonna be defeated, and by the end he's gonna be roboticized. But they're trying to give it a bit more class compared to how the original went, which was a series of bullying and mistreatment that Quark did to him, and it was more played for comedy. So I can kind of get what they were trying to do, but that goes. They were playing a bit too, fast and loose with it in order to, feed everything in the first movie.
Part of the problem is that while it's no longer Quark's fault that Nefarious becomes evil, it kind of makes Nefarious feel just evil for evil's sake. And don't get me wrong, there can be very entertaining villains like that, but I feel like, taking all agency away from Quark feels like it's just an easy ticket to, well, lack of responsibility for Quark. And I do kind of get it. One of the complaints, at least one of the complaints we had, was that by the time of the Future series, the series couldn't seem to decide how much we really wanted Quark to get away with and, still have people cheer for him. So I guess the idea with this movie is to give us a Quark who, while a jerk, is somebody we can root for, since he does see the
Oh my
error of
god, he
his
actually
ways.
was checking the water cooler.
Wow. I, like... I guess he's just resolved himself to follow Nefarious's orders.
So yeah, here's the thing that the first game did not do, that a confrontation on foot, kinda, with Quark instead of on the ship.
Okay, given how endorsement deals work, if you lost that, I think that's more on you, unless they somehow broke contract.
Ow.
Also, no idea why they had that gun. That's not the Walloper from the original game.
They
Weird.
lost it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'll give him credit. This is actually a proper gadgets fight, and one where Quark isn't
They also
insane like he
bother
was in
to-
Ratchet 3.
They also bother to showcase, implicitly other stuff about Ratchet as like the magnet boots or the swing shot without having to necessarily call them too much about it. Again, that's
And
the
one
kind. It's similar to the Minecraft movie. That kind of representative from the game that game fans will get without having to pointing out too much about it.
Yeah, and to their credit, it shows that for as dumb as he typically is, Quark can actually be competent in a fight, which, makes sense as to how he got his position in the first place. Again, this movie's kind of frustrating because it does a lot of things that I actually can respect and even like, but unfortunately, the sum of its parts amounts to not much because for every good thing it does, there's like 10 bad things it does, or just things that don't make sense whatsoever as to why they did it.
Oh no, not Clank. These two had so much characters. Did you read to reference the tornado gun from Tools of Destruction? That one sucked.
Oh, but look, guys, Ratchet still is so kind-hearted that he's trying to reach to Quark's better nature instead of chastise him.
Like, I get you might want to give a message to the kids because the first game was effective. Revenge is actually not that bad. Kind of message. So I don't know, but this is not the way to do it. I'm sorry.
Well, that was that, I guess.
You're sorry. You stab people in the back and endanger an entire galaxy, and all you gotta say is, I'm sorry.
That's the Steven
Dwibs,
Universe way. And yeah,
Dwibs.
just conveniently in time for Nefarious to show up so that Quark can redeem himself.
Oh, look at that. He even gives the honor to Ratchet to show how much he's grown.
Uh-huh. So yeah, Quark still bullied Nefarious, though. It's so weird about the fact that Gadgetron is barely a thing. It is mentioned in here, so you think that they will actually build the weapons, but instead Nefarious did, apparently.
Okay, so the big difference is that as opposed to it being in school, it seems it's more so Quark taking the glory of being a hero. What?
The movie has to stop again to lampshade the joke.
Someone
Shoot him! Shoot him! Someone just shoot him while this is going on.
This is what I mean when I said that the other Galactic Rangers compared to Quark are so forgettable. Again, the movie generally tries to give them a personality and unique designs, but they could be just cut away from the movie.
Okay, I can get not doing the entire lineup from
Couldn't
three
you
since
just have said
a lot of them
that?
are kind of ragtags.
Seriously, the joke would have worked so better if he just cut to Quark saying, "Look, I workshopped this like 1,000 of years. No, not everything can be gold." That would have been the perfect payoff instead of actually to spend several seconds having to do the back and forth.
Once again, I must say, I was joking when I compared this to Mega Man Fully Charged jokes, but once again, you proved me right, movie.
This was also the time of stuff like the Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventure animated series. Someone, somewhere in America or somewhere else, thought that this was the future in terms of writing for animation targeted to kids, having to be based around video games.
Also Canada when it comes to Mega Man
It's
Fully
still
Charged,
America.
since that came from North America, like the continent, but not the
Don't
United
worry,
States
Joe.
of America.
If things
the
are
country.
anything to go by, that will be annexed pretty soon.
Jesus Christ. Imagine us turning Canada into our 51st state. So yes, it appears that we're going a little tilted here.
Oop. Ow.
But yeah, like I was saying, it seems like, as opposed to it being in school, it's more so with his time on the Galactic Rangers that Nefarious felt mistreated. So yeah, there's a bit of the Quark bullying him here thing, but... Oh dear.
There you go. Crisis averted. Thankfully, no moons to piss on. Although, something close
Alas.
to that. Also, here's the weird part as you're about to see. In this movie, as you're about to see, the effects of the Shippinator are temporary.
Huh.
That's okay. I can believe this to an extent because in the games, the Shippinated targets...
And he's dead anyway.
Yeah. Shippinated targets stay like that until you kill them, but I can believe in a case of if they stay too long, they will eventually get back. And it would be a failsafe for the horrible implication that the weapon gives.
I do kind of dig how, they combined the 2 in 1, hey, the laser's knocked off course, but just like in the original game, Drek gets blown up with his planet.
It's just a thing that he should still be in the final boss to an extent.
Yes, he should. And okay, look, I get it. I love Nefarious too, but did we really need to make him the villain of what's supposed to be Drek's big villain moment?
Get ready for... Well, shit, a villain is having the Rhino. What's gonna happen? That's actually a very tense moment. Nope, Ratchet just knocks it off of his head.
But hey, he did it using the Omni Wrench, so...
We are... Okay, I'm sorry to say it. Possibly the worst offense of the game. The movie, sorry. Getting blue-balled on using the Rhino, there has to be a level of malicious, interpretation of a franchise. It's like if in a Doom movie adaptation, the BFG was only visualized a bit and then destroyed before it could be used. For how bad the Doom movies are, they at least get that aspect right. It's also a simple thing in the script to change, just have Ratchet do this, but then he grabs the Rhino and uses it to finish Nefarious off. Would have been costing that much in terms of animation to do that?
But Tio, the Omni Wrench is just that awesome.
And also, yeah, because of that, we're also spared of an actual decent boss fight against Nefarious at the end. It just pulls out.
So let me get this straight. You essentially made Nefarious the main boss of this game, of this movie, but then you don't give us a proper final fight with him using the Rhino. Oh yeah, and also showing the Omni Wrench's uses here. Like, again, I feel like we skimmed over Ratchet even developing the Omni Wrench.
Well, he was already proficient to the beginning, and he did showcase a couple of times the classic move about rotating the screw at the center that was iconic for the franchise. Also, Creation of Adam reference in terms of connecting things. Weird.
Which Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 also did. Which Sylvester Stallone was also in. Oh, what a shock! The heroes survived, and here I was thinking they were dead, and the sequel will be about their descendants. This has been Learning with Ratchet 101. So the Galactic Rangers are really
supposed to have learned blowing up planets and trying to fuse them together is bad.
No, don't you see? You don't have to do big things to be a hero. That completely will help Quark learn how to get the forgiveness of the Galactic Rangers.
Goody, we need to almost end on a vomiting joke. Family Guy will be so proud.
Oh wait, not almost. Quark apparently actually did vomit.
Also, Ratchet did. Hilarious.
Why?
Someone from Nickelodeon, I guess, took over.
Yeah. What? What? No.
Okay, bye then.
No, we are not doing the stupid friends have to split up at the end for arbitrary reasons thing. It's Ratchet and Clank, damn it.
Ratchet with Clank sometimes.
So it's deadlocked.
Like, why even? Like, it's not like Ratchet absolutely has to stay back on Veldin.
It's more of a case of pay respect to his old man.
I guess Zed's also working at Ratchet's workshop now, too.
So he's been demoted to private. But he still gets his own outfit.
So yeah, otherwise, yeah, that's the thing. Quark still gets away with most of the stuff that he did. Which is why it's hilarious, because the Insomnia game literally opens up by saying, no, he got arrested. Like, people
so the game is kind of a sequel to this.
Yeah, people in Insomniac Mama did not raise no fool for them. That's what I mean.
We're really doing this whole, oh, Ratchet's totally retiring from the hero business thing, even in the movie. I guess to show that he now really likes his small upbringing. Hey, you know, Ratchet was able to juggle both heroic duty with his old hobbies, you know. He didn't have to give up one for the other. And I know someone will bring up the comic, but again, that was more like a retirement for the sake of a story. He was pretty much back in the hero business later on.
Hey, he's which makes that scene previously with them playing up really pointless. I know that the movie is trying to playing up as super wholesome of them being friends thick and thin, but I'm sorry, this is not only the slightest.
I've seen it done before, and I've seen it done better.
This is a waste of great animation. Because, yeah, for a 2016 animated movie, this still holds up for the most part.
Oh, yeah, no, the animation's probably the best part of this.
Again, design notwithstanding.
But hey, Tio, they're doing that thing that we also don't like. Ratchet and Clank are totally retiring from the hero business.
Oh, great. Once arranged, now being reminded of that god-awful Operation Overdrive anniversary celebration.
So yeah, I think there are 2 post-credit scenes in this, so stay tuned for things to happen.
Starring Paul Giamatti as Drek, Joe Goodman as him.
Did we really needed these as the worst steals for the characters?
Hey, it's just like the comic, choosing those weird frames to pause on. Also, I do find it kind of cute that Jim Ward has. Okay, maybe they're probably just saving him for later, but Jim Ward showing up later in the credits makes it seem like he has lower billing despite being a more important character. But, given how it is with the
with
big
James
show
Arnold Taylor,
actors versus
it's not
the
like
voice actors.
It's not like he's one of the main title characters or anything. Nope, he just gets with.
Jesus.
They're literally the title heroes. Like, say what you will about the Sonic movies.
All right.
Pretty sure they still put.
Yeah, let's get on the Defense Clash site. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Even the subtitle, knew where this was going.
Gotta give the money shot.
So yeah, similar actually to the game, because even in the games it was like that. Nefarious getting roboticized, that was an accident. He was pushed accidentally by Quark in a pile of rubble, which accidentally converted his organic matter into robotic. And his design is the one from A Crack in Time, though. Weird. So yeah, here's again. This will not go anywhere, but at the very least,
because no sequel.
But at the very least, they had that right to actually roboticize the Pharaohs by the end. Again, there is another post-credit scene. Technically, it's more of a gag or anything, but you'll see. So for now, final thoughts, Dweebs.
Well, that was
a movie.
Really underwhelming. Okay, positives first, because there are some. The animation is really good, considering that the somebody had a $20 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
The voice actors are all trying. That's really about it.
What about the score, Dweebs? The whimsy.
There was a score.
Apparently.
Didn't you just love how whimsical everything was in that regard?
Really? I don't know. got more whimsy out of my farts. Yeah, like the jokes in this movie are really better. But yeah, negatives. The story is something that we've seen a billion times before and done much better.
Yeah, okay, like I said before, really gets top billing. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
I'm not going to pretend that the 2002 characterization of Ratchet was better than this, but it's like the opposite problem. They made Ratchet too unlikable in the game. Here he's too much of a dork.
A goody two shoes.
Yeah. It's like they tried to course correct, but went to the opposite extreme.
I wouldn't even call it making him more similar to the game counterpart at this point, because as we noted in Into the Nexus, Ratchet characterization was technically balanced, but he still was solid enough. He still wanted, justice for what happened to Clank and Zephyr instead of just making a sad face.
And like, I'm sorry, even if you wanted to make him more of a goody two shoes, Ratchet would not just let the reveal that the guy in charge of the Galactic Rangers betrayed them go unabated. Even if he was sad about it, he would at least notify them rather than just leave them to their potential fate stewing on Velden like he did.
It's a bit weird though. Everything's still in danger, and he goes and he just gets to go back home.
It's so weird. Yeah, I know.
That'd be like that'd be like if you and Alderaan got blown up. That'd be like if they just put Leia back on the ship she was on and let it go off on its merry way.
Like Drek says he wants him to be alive to see his failures, but I'm sorry, Drek from the original game was much more savvy than that. Every shot he had at Ratchet and Clank, he took to kill. He didn't try to leave them alive just because he was a card-carrying villain. He was a businessman, through and foremost. Here he's like, oh yeah, no, let him go. And it's not just that he leaves him in a pod aimlessly drifting. Apparently Ratchet was able to get that pod back to Velden, so Ratchet could have just gone to the Galactic Rangers and told them, and well, the Galactic Rangers probably would have been able to formulate the plan that they did earlier.
Also, a lot of outsourcing to Chinese animators, as I'm seeing from these credits.
It's just not a very good movie. It's not the worst video game adaptation in the world. God knows I've seen far worse than this.
Even recently, argue for just one instance, the Borderlands movie is far worse than this.
Oh, the Borderlands
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, that one. Okay, that one kind of has the same issue. This one is that it's really dull.
Okay, let's try. Okay,
but I mean, at least there were some funny jokes here.
Dweebs, I forgot. Have you seen the Minecraft movie? Sorry, a Minecraft movie.
No, I haven't.
Okay, because I wanted to ponder what the comparison would be with that, because I do believe that's actually a more interesting terrain to compare to the movie. But again, we don't have the occasion.
Remind me, Tia, what did you and Derge think when you did your talk on the Minecraft movie?
Not the worst adaptation, but it definitely showcased the fact it was rewritten all the times.
But yeah, that sums my thoughts up. It's just really dull and uninteresting.
Alright, we're about to get to the final post-credit scene. Hey, here's the plumber.
Are you as omnipotent as you are in the games?
Yes, because he's aware of the fact that he's at the end of the movie. I mean, I like this. If anything, this fits the plumber. That would be
nice.
That would be John Hughes with the Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So you need to.
I was about.
You need to go after. Remind me again the name of the actor.
Matthew Broderick.
Yes, you have to go after Matthew Broderick.
Yeah. There have been a few that do throwbacks to that. But yeah, if I recall correctly, I think that was like, if not the first ever,
a premiere
one of the
that.
original post-created scenes.
Yes. Alright, is that it for you, Dweebs?
Yeah, it is.
Java.
Oh boy. It's not good. Like, I'll admit, it's not as bad as I was fearing, but I can see why Ratchet and Clank fans were upset and disappointed with this, and it's not good, which is a shame because there are actually a lot of good ideas and, dare I say, a few jokes that do get legitimate laughs out of me. The problem is just that it feels like there were too many cooks in the kitchen. It feels like a ton of ideas smashed upon each other with no rhyme or reason put there. Oh, first we're adapting the first game. No, wait, let's adapt a bit of the third game. Oh, by the way, Nefarious is actually the real true villain of this, which is supposed to be an adaptation of the first game. Genius! Just wonderful genius. Like, yeah, Drek does get his comeuppance, which, mind you, he has to morph back to his regular form to even properly get that comeuppance, which kind of messes with the lore on how those devices work, but maybe we can just say that that was a prototype of Nefarious'. The thing is, I do feel like Tears' theory might be on point, that TJ Fixman wrote up a skeleton of a story, or heck, maybe even wrote a story proper, but it seems like stuff got rewritten to hell and back that only glimpses of his vision remain here and there. I'm just gonna say it. I prefer Ratchet from the original game. He was not perfect, but that was kind of the point. That it was like he was a lot more angry with stuff. He was one who was ambitious as well. This Ratchet seems more like a wide-eyed generic dreamer and all that who wants to be part of the Galactic Rangers, but then realizes he's not cut out for it because he realizes that Quark betrayed them. Like, as much as that sucks, why does that have him quit instead of, doing what's right? Like, Like,
The thing
maybe
is
he's a
that I
bit
could swear.
disillusioned.
The thing is that I could swear there was another product, movie, game, or comic where something like this exact scenario happened, where there was a moment of darkness, and then the hero decides to, retire, come home, and then goes back almost immediately after a pep talk.
It's like here it feels so generic and by the numbers essentially. It's like they're basically checking off boxes from the checklist. Oh yes, Ratchet needs to be high on his hopes and whatnot, but then by the second act to end, we need to have him quit being a hero for some reason. And again, I don't know about most of audiences, but that's been a thing I've never really cared for in the Ratchet series when they go, oh, nope, Ratchet and Clank are totally done being heroes now, guys, we swear, only for them to immediately go back into action and whatnot. Like, I guess I'll give Into the Nexus credit. It didn't end with the idea that they're retiring, despite all the tragedy and whatnot. Although, mind you, as far as fans knew, Into the Nexus was the last they were going to see of the old
Yeah.
continuity, so whatever they were going to replace that with needed to have a very good first impression. This is not it. Also, I guess the Tallinn lookalike is supposed to be a Tallinn stand-in. Like, I'm sorry. Sasha should have been part of the Galactic Rangers as their leader, like in Ratchet 3. Especially since President Byronix
Like,
is still a thing
Even
here.
beyond that, Jova, why don't you just replace these new characters that are tied to the Galactic Rangers with the ones that we know from the games, like Skidman Max, Helga, and other people?
Yeah. You know, those more memorable
Like,
personalities. Like,
I know that the Mario movie got criticized for too much fan service, but this seems to be, to me, the kind of, spot in the movie that will make sense to include those.
yeah, like, I mean, and mind you, yeah, you would still need to make them interesting in the movie, but you would have had less work on yourself by having familiar characters that at least fans of the games would recognize. Here, you made brand new characters that, I'm sorry, they have some interesting designs, but overall, they don't have much in the ways of personality.
Just quote Robotnik from the first Sonic movie, Jova.
Nobody cares! Nobody cares.
There you go.
Mm-mm. And it really is a shame, because I do feel like there was potential, as there are with many things, but it just got wasted, essentially. I guess the music is fine. I'll admit, I've never really remembered much of the score from the games as well, so it's not like this was a massive downgrade for me. The animation and art, okay, that's pretty good, actually. Save for a few weird designs here and there, like, again, what they did to Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I don't really get that design change. Again, maybe they were afraid of getting sued,
Okay,
who knows, or whatnot.
Was the joke implication that in Deadlock Dallas had a toupee instead of actually, having natural hair? Is that the joke? Because
I don't recall ever suggesting he had a toupee. Like, again, it seemed definitely like they were going for a Tucker Carlson look-alike and whatnot, and some of his mannerisms and whatnot, but no, I really don't get it. Which is weird when we get some of those weird things where I just can't even fathom a reason why they did what they did. I do get why they wanted to make Nefarious the big bad of this. I still think it was a bad idea. Like, imagine if we made a remake of Street Fighter 1 and instead of, like, Sagat, it's, oh, no, sorry, it's now M. Bison who's the big bad of Street Fighter 1.
The Legend of Chun-Li.
Yeah. But that wasn't an adaptation of Street Fighter 1, but okay.
I guess, to an extent.
Oh, wait, right. They were trying to do that, even though Chun-Li technically wasn't a thing by Street Fighter 1.
It's supposed to even be a prequel to Street Fighter, because, it ends with Chun-Li being invited to the Street Fighter tournament.
God, it's so stupid. Well, you know what? Hey, I guess that just reinforces my point, though. Again, yes, Nefarious is cool and awesome, but did we need to have him hijack Drex's plot? No, I don't think we did. Because I think Drek was fine enough as a villain in the original game, essentially. Obviously, he wouldn't be the mainstay, but he was enough of a threat on his own here and there. And then there's Quark. I'm overall fine with them not wanting to just make Quark like blatantly evil, essentially, which he kind of was in the first game, like knowingly working for Drek and all that. Like here, Quark seems to be a legit guy who means well. I do feel though that once again they kind of lose track of what their true intentions are, since they do make it that Quark is once again the reason for Nefarious being the bad guy. Like at first it seems like the movie was going to suggest that that was more so on Nefarious himself, but no, it does go into Quark belittling him, and once again, well, not once again, but in this case, outright stealing credit from him. Though one does wonder, why didn't Nefarious ever tell any of the Galactic Rangers about this? Like, they seem to actually be on the up and up, like they believed Ratchet when he tells them that Quark betrayed them. Alaris seems to be pretty smart, so again, maybe it's the movie trying to say that, oh, despite the fact that Quark made fun of Nefarious, it still is on Nefarious himself that he ends up the way he is because nobody forced him to become evil. But I think that just ties into my biggest problem with the movie: lack of commitment on ideas, in the sense that the movie will raise an idea here and there, but then it'll act all wishy-washy just for the sake of the plot. Oh, maybe Ratchet can be the better man in upbringing. Ah, no, 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 no. Let's just make him the hero. Oh, maybe there might be something that Quark has to learn. I mean, he technically learns, but not really much that the movie reflects on here and
He
there. It's like the
barely gets a
movie.
gets a comeuppance for his actions, just a small pat on the back and simple demotion. Again, this is why I understand the vision behind Insomniac, because the opening of the game is like, nah, man, miss me with that shit.
Like, remember, in the original trilogy, Quark had to go into hiding. He had to escape to a whole nother universe to escape his
Although to
guilt
be
and all
fair,
that. And he,
in the second game, it was mentioned that the reason he was arrested was not for the stuff from the first game, but because he sold the counterfeit Gadgetron stuff.
fair point, yeah. But all the same, it felt like he got more consequences there,
Yeah.
even though he basically got pardoned by the third game. And it helped that at least in the third game, that was when we saw his more redeeming qualities here and there. Here, again, it feels like in this movie they want kids to think, but they don't want them to think too much, essentially, about implications or consequences in actions here and there. Ah, at the end of the day, I'm not mad, but just disappointed. Especially since this movie does a lot of the things that I don't like from the future series. It's like, huh, way to take the qualities from this game series, but the more negative ones in that regard. I'll just say this: at the end of the day, between this and the game, which we'll commentate on, yeah, I'm not exactly sorry to see this continuity kind of ended prematurely. Tio, your final
Yeah.
thoughts?
As I stated a couple of times throughout this commentary, I still like the idea behind this movie at the end of the day, but the execution is really what kills it. The animation is very pretty, again, redesign of Dallas notwithstanding. The voice actors are giving their all, again, in spite of some specific recast even made no sense, and the whole debacle that happened in European, non-English speaking languages. The music is just there, but it's serviceable. By the same token of being forgettable, it's not bad. I just wish there were actual tracks from the first game to be used or remixed in some kind of fashion, but here they not even bother. If Sonic and Mario had to really struggle to get those, these had not of a chance, you know. Uh,
Mm-mm-mm.
The representation from the games in the form of the gadgets and the weapons is there, and I argue it's done relatively cleverly. We didn't talk about it, but the whole idea of materializing your weapon in thanks to the power of the suit, that's a neat way to integrate the hyperspace arsenal from the game, because you literally do that. You materialize your weapons from the weapon wheel. So the movie bothering to add that neat little, crank in it, that's not really bad, actually, it's a neat way to tie things up instead of actually having Ratchet rely on just one weapon at a time or two to reflect Halo. So I kind of like the subtle details of this, but unfortunately, the bigger picture of a movie is just too much of a mess. The plot has to bend its knees to have the fails at the final boss, which doesn't even get a decent confrontation. You know, Quark's arc into betraying the others has a bit more class to it, but he pretty much peters out instead of actually having a decent conclusion. And Chairman Drank being demoted as just a patsy really is, not particularly great as a look on. Again, I like the fact that Victor got an upgrade instead of just being a character I don't even remember if he had a name in the first game. So there is that. Uh, and also, like I said, the biggest thing, blue balling on the Rhino. That one is just the gravest offense, most possibly the most sacrilegious thing in terms of adapting your source material. They even bothered to give the
It's like
Rhino a cool title card and everything. And like I said, it would have been so easy to fix, but they didn't. Like, did they wanted to save the usage of a Rhino for a sequel against the roboticized Nefarious? Because if that's so, that's just stupid. I'm sorry.
like I said, it's weird that they have the Rhino basically get jobbed out in favor of the Omni Wrench. Like, it's like if in a Sonic movie, suddenly the Chaos Emeralds are canceled out by a ring. Because, hey,
Don't
that's
you mean
what
the
you deal with
Phantom
more
Ruby?
often. No. I go with a ring because the ring is more common. If I recall correctly, the idea with the Chaos Emeralds versus the Phantom. Well, you know what? Yeah, fine. It's similar to that in that regard, but
Also, there
it's just
was
the
the intro
Omni-Wrench.
Sonic Unleashed where Eggman managed to knock Sonic out of the state via just a ray that he had.
To be fair, he's not the first person who's knocked Sonic out of super form. My point is that the Omni Wrench beating out the Rhino is weird. Is it like, oh look, your basic weapon is just that cool
Well,
against
to be fair,
the
it's
weapon
more
that
of
you usually try to
it was
unlock?
more of a case of Ratchet getting the drop on Nefarious before he could pull the trigger. So, like, if it was a case where Nefarious had fired but Ratchet had managed to avoid all the bullets and strike him, I would agree more with that on you. But it was really more of a case of Ratchet just sneak attacking more than anything. The whole bit
Part
of
of
the
me
Omni
does.
Wrench was just to echo what Nefarious was saying.
I think he did get to pull the trigger a bit, but part of me wonders if like the residue from the gun is part of what metallicizes Nefarious. It looked like
No,
the
because
downpour from the
it
gun.
was
Oh.
thrown into the core of the planetizer, which happened to also be fused with the part of the factory that was creating the robots. That why at by the end is this mechanical monstrosity because that was literally just an accident combining the different parts.
Which, hey, would have, I guess, made him tethered to Clank in a way, I guess. Uh,
But yeah, again, at the end of the day, this movie could have been so much better with very little effort, and instead it became one of the quintessentials, not jokes, but movies that are even forgotten. There are far worse video game movie adaptations that we've seen, like Tekken 2 Kazuya's Revenge. God help me.
the movie that showed that Kazuya was cucked by his dad even in his youth. Jesus
But
Christ.
but this just falls into the mid category. It has the potential for greatness, but unfortunately, doesn't manage to reach quite there and stops before it can actually live into at the very least a good kind of territory. Unfortunately. Uh, but again, at the end of the day, it's reflecting a bit also on some of the games, like you said, mentioned Jova, where even at their lowest, they're still not considered utter trash. To borrow again a quote from CB11 and paraphrasing a bit, how sad it is that Doom got two bad movie adaptations that are worse than this. How?
Yeah,
How is
and
it
like
possible?
Doom's supposed to be like super easy to get. Dude's pissed off that demons killed his rabbit. Boom.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the movie. But as we said, there was a companion game to be released. Something that even Insomnia did not know much because they had only a 10 months casual to actually make the fucking thing. Jesus Christ.
Customary of tie-in movie games. Ugh.
And it was something that apparently Sean Layden wanted personally, and something that Jim Ryan dared to question with the whole, why do people want to play an old game? So tune in for the
Jesus
next part
Christ.
to showcase why people would want to play an old game, Jimbo. See ya.
See you then.